So does insomnia cause cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and all these other really serious chronic long-term health concerns that you've read about in the newspapers and on the internet? And the answer is absolutely not. None of this stuff has ever been proven. And yep, I know how insomnia makes you feel. I know how it erodes and strips your life. You know, I had it for 20 years, so I know what it does to your confidence, self-esteem, self-worth. It does cause depression. That's been proven 9 times more likely to suffer from depression if you've got insomnia, and 18 times more likely to suffer from anxiety. These two things have been proven because these are more acute health concerns which happen and occur very quickly after the onset of insomnia. And so this is how these two health concerns have been proven. But these long-term health concerns that you read about, they've never been proven. And in fact, people with insomnia have been shown to have exactly the same life expectancy as someone who does not have insomnia. And so the reason why it's absolutely impossible to prove that insomnia causes any long-term health concern is because, well, let's take cancer for example. To prove insomnia causes cancer, you'd have to have 1,000 people, and you would split them into 2 groups, and you would give 500 of these people perfect sleep for the rest of their life. And the other 500 people you would give insomnia to for the rest of their life. And then you would follow both groups for about 40-50 years. And then at the end of this study, you would see whether or not the group who had insomnia had a higher prevalence of cancer. And of course, this study has never and will never be conducted. It's completely impossible to give people perfect sleep and give people insomnia. It's completely impossible and not cost effective to run a study like this. And no one on the planet is ever going to sign up to a study like this. And that's why a study like this has never ever been conducted and will never ever be conducted. And so where does all this nonsense come from? Where do all these newspaper articles come from? Well, they all come from correlational studies, not causation studies. So correlational studies are complete nonsense. So let's take, for example, fibromyalgia. There's a correlation between insomnia and short sleep and fibromyalgia. And this is because what they would do with this study, they would ask people with fibromyalgia if they are short sleepers or if they have insomnia. And often people with fibromyalgia will say, I don't tend to sleep very well and I am a short sleeper. Okay. Insomnia now causes fibromyalgia, but actually, if you look at it, people with fibromyalgia, they have a lot of pain when they're in bed, so this is going to affect their sleep quality. So it's quite natural to assert that someone with fibromyalgia is going to have interrupted sleep. So therefore, it's not the insomnia that has caused fibromyalgia, it's the fibromyalgia which has interrupted and caused poor quality sleep. But a correlation has been proven between the two, and that's what you'll read about in the newspapers. People, however, with fibromyalgia may also report that they sleep for, let's say, longer than 8 hours. So you ask them, how long do you spend in bed? Oh, they go, I'm really fatigued all the time because of this long-term health concern that I'm suffering from. So I tend to be in bed for 9-10 hours a day. And I think I probably sleep for 8 or 9 hours a day. And so then we've now got a correlation between sleeping too much, long sleep, and fibromyalgia. And in fact, there's just as much data and there's just as much correlational evidence to prove that long sleepers, people who sleep more than 8 hours, have more health concerns than short sleepers, people who sleep less than 6 hours, and people who have insomnia. The truth is that it's all a bit murky and none of it really proves anything. So someone who thinks that they're a long sleeper because they got fibromyalgia, they're probably massively underestimating the amount of sleep that they're getting, because if they're spending a long time in bed, their sleep's going to be incredibly broken. That person who thinks they're only sleeping less than 6 hours, they might well be underreporting the amount of sleep that they're getting. So really, these correlational studies, they're just normally based on people's perspective and people's interpretation of the amount of sleep that they're getting. So there's nothing scientific there. There's nothing been proven. But what is certainly true, that if people read about this stuff in the newspapers, read about insomnia causing cancer, heart disease, diabetes, this causes a huge amount of anxiety, huge amount of obsession, huge amount of worry around sleep, and actually makes people's insomnia far, far worse, because it drives people down the rabbit hole of trying even harder and harder to fix it. So why are these studies so prevalent, and why are they the only thing that you seem to hear about in the newspapers? Well, there's a really common saying when it comes to media, and that is, if it bleeds, it leads. So if there was a study that said that long sleepers, sleeping too much will cause X and Y health concern, no one's going to click on that. Or if there was a study that said, you know what, people's amount of sleep varies from person to person, the best thing you can do about sleep is to not become obsessive and worried about it, and just relax, step back, no one's going to click on that. But if you see a headline that says insomnia causes cancer, you'll buy the newspaper, you'll click on the ad, on the article, then they show you that advertisement, and that is essentially what media is. It's always trying to get you to engage, and the more sensationalist a story is, the more likely you are to click on it. I'm sure you've seen the same with YouTube, the really kind of extreme thumbnails and the really extreme titles, you're far more likely to click on. Same thing comes when it same thing occurs when it comes to sleep as well. But I really want you to kind of put that to bed. And if you don't believe me, if it's still a worry in your head, it's still something that's causing you a lot of anxiety, stress and worry, Alexey Guzey, Alexey Guzey, Google his name and insomnia, and you will see an amazing article that he's written, which basically rubbishes this whole thing and will hopefully bring that anxiety around this down. All right, I really hope this video has been helpful to you. Sleepze.com if you want to work with me one-to-one. I've got a sleep program on there, I've got free stuff on there. It's really cool. I've got discounts, loads of good stuff on there. So yeah, Sleepze, and I'll see you on the next video.